Hello and welcome to the second episode of Mentor Mind by Super Satang. Today we have Vin, who is the founder and CEO of Megatix, as well as many other projects. So he's going to be talking about his business endeavors and what he has learned, and he's going to share it with you. So Vin, could you please introduce yourself a bit?
Hi everyone, and thanks Krishan for this invitation. So I'm Vin. Full name is Vinod Kumar, commonly known as Vin. I'm one of the founders of Megatix, but I've also got a couple of other projects. One is events company, and I'm also in the alcohol distribution business here in Thailand as well.
Awesome, awesome.
Do you want a bit more of background?
Yes, please could you give us background, maybe where
Sure.
you studied, how you ended up here, doing all like in the alcohol beverage industry, how you landed up in Thailand, maybe?
Yeah, okay, cool. There's a lot to cover. So I've just turned 40, just to give it some context, of how my life has kind of progressed up until this age. I'm Hindu Punjabi, born in the UK, growing up in Australia, and I've been in Thailand for about 9 years now. It was the early childhood was in the UK in Wolverhampton. Moved over with my family to firstly Adelaide, and then we lived in Perth. As far as study goes, I was not that studious most of the time. Quite rebellious childhood, but did well at school. All right, I studied a lot at home with my dad at a young age, and I kind of got a bit of a head start, I would say. Especially in those early high school years. I found a lot of the work was quite easy. I was quite ahead of the other students, and it probably comes down to putting in a lot of extra time and effort in those primary school years and studying at home. But when things are too easy, you get kind of distracted. So I spent a lot of my, year 8, 9, 10, quite distracted in school because I found the work was, at a bit of a slow pace. It wasn't until probably age 16 that I started, really concentrating again and honing my skills a little bit. I was presented with some opportunities which were extracurricular from the normal school stuff. I joined a business association where we had to set up our own company. So we had to elect positions, and it was a kind of mock company initially, but then eventually we sold some shares, and it was all very, manual. We printed out these shares on a piece of paper, and everyone sold it to their parents, their aunties, uncles, grandparents. And I was luckily elected as the managing director at that time. And then we had to come up with a product. All right, so what are we going to sell? What are we going to do? How are we going to make money and some returns for our investors? So we decided to make these. I don't know if you saw those pencil cases. Trolls, the little toy trolls with the
Ah,
huge furry
yeah,
hair.
the hair one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was really popular back then. So we took that style of fur, and we made little pencil cases and coin purses and sold them. Now it was it's a funny story because most of the labor cost there was none. We had a lot of Asian students in our little class, in our group, in our company. And it was their aunties, uncles, grandmothers that were, sewing these things together while watching TV, and we end up getting like the highest returns on the initial investment within my region. And I
Wow.
think that was my first real taste of business. And then I was sponsored by the city that I lived in. I was sponsored by, it's called the Subiaco Business Council. They sent me to this Young Achievers Award conference in Sydney. It was like a resort about an hour north of Sydney. And the plan for me was, well, the plan for people attending, you had either already made $1 million before the age of 25, or they expected that you would.
Oh, wow.
So just to put it out there, I didn't make $1 million before age of 25. I went to this convention, and it was fantastic, really, a great networking opportunity. But then I had to come back at age, 17, 18, just fresh out of high school. And I had two opportunities. One was to kind of go down this path, which was to kind of work. They offered me an internship at three different companies, which was IBM, Price Waterhouse, and AMP. and it was kind of, do 6 months, 1 year, 6 months, and then they guaranteed you a job placement at the end of that time. I didn't go down that route. I went to uni, and then still I didn't enjoy studying at university. I was one of those students that I went to as least amount of lectures as I could. I didn't really hang out with friends at university. I went there when I really needed to. I studied in my own time, studied at home, tried to do as much things online as I could, but I was always working. And I was working in hospitality. I mean, I had jobs like Pizza Hut, and then I got a job working in a hotel. And I think this is where, my path was quite different, but it was also that generation. At that time, there was this constant debate of, do you want to hire a fresh university graduate, or would you prefer to hire someone who had 2 or 3 years work experience? And I managed to get in working in hospitality at quite a young age. I was working in a hotel at age 17, 18. And then there was a lot of opportunity for growth and promotions. So I was constantly battling with trying to work full time and study full time. And of course, the study just kind of went less and less. And then I was, if you fast forward a couple of years, I think I was 19 and a supervisor at a hotel,
Oh,
earning,
wow.
three or four times as much salary as any of my kids my age.
Nice.
And I think once you get a taste of that, that financial freedom, I moved out of home, moved into an apartment in the city. It was really kind of living the life. It was kind of hard to go back, and I deferred. So I only had 1 year left on my degree, and I never finished it. Um, just kept working, and I think I worked at the hotel for about 7 years, every position within the hotel.
Oh, wow.
Um, I took 1 year off. Have you ever had people tell you, I used to get this when I was young, probably around your age, that you don't know what hard work is? All right.
I mean,
Adults,
yeah,
old people, they
yeah.
like to tell you all the time, like, you don't know what hard work is. You don't know what hard work is. And I took off a year from working in a hotel and study to just go and work as a casual laboring position.
Mm.
And this was, they'd call you at 5 o'clock in the morning and say, you're available to go to this factory today. You got to be there by 8. You wouldn't even know what work you're doing. You just have to turn up there. And it was grunt work, right? It was very difficult.
Ah.
So one of the most memorable ones I had was working at the Schweppes factory when the palletizing machine had broken. So my job all day was to pick up these boxes of cans and turn around and put them onto a pallet.
Oh, no.
And the conveyor belt used to go so fast, it used to cut your arm because the
Oh,
next
no.
cardboard box would be coming.
Oh.
And I was like, man, this is very difficult work. But I did that for a good year, and moved around. So I know what hard work is. And I think that's important. But what it taught me, which has stuck with me until today, is if you're going to work in any industry, profession, make sure you start from the bottom up.
Hmm.
All right. Don't take things that have just been given to you on a silver platter because it might sound good at the time, but those gaps in knowledge and expertise eventually will shine through. So for any youngsters, looking to get started, just get started and don't go for this, you need to be a founder of a brand new company. You need to come up with some brand new product or innovation, but just learn the basic skills so that wealth of knowledge that you're building over time, you're constantly adding to it, but you have a strong foundation. And I guess, for most people, university is that foundation because you get basic knowledge, you get that good framework. For me, I didn't have that. I mean, I still studied a lot at university, but I didn't finish the degree, so I didn't
Yeah.
get that bachelor's degree or what it is. All right, now where are we up to? So that's mid 20s. I then kind of eventually burnt out because I started quite young. All right. And I was
Yeah.
working sometimes 16, 18 hours a day, two or three
Wow.
different departments in a hotel, and then still going and partying after that. So I wanted to now, I wanted the next challenge. And someone told me on average, so this is again when I was in school or in university, that on average people change their careers every 7 years at that time. I would say that number is probably even reduced even further now. But back then we had people who worked at the same job for 20 years. That
Yeah.
wasn't a rare thing. I think that's
Yeah.
very rare these days. All right, so even 7 years in the same industry is already quite a lot of commitment. So I wanted some change because it was about 7 years I'd worked there. I went and applied for some jobs to transfer internationally. So I had a job interview in Dubai, Prague, UK. I didn't take any of the jobs because I was quite comfortable in Perth. I don't know if you're familiar with Perth, but it's a small city, and working and so on. I had a good network of people there. Was living quite a comfortable lifestyle, enjoyable. So I wasn't ready to leave. But I had a friend of mine who I met through the kind of nightlife scene, who just said, "Why don't you just take 6 months off from working full time, and work with me in my events company?" And what he was doing at that time was, club events, so bringing in DJs, guest DJs, and charging ticket prices, and a few international artists. So we had, how old are you?
16.
Yeah, so you don't know who Cypress Hill is, right?
No.
No. Yeah, they were one of the most famous hip hop groups at that time. All right,
Oh,
but then we started bringing in people like that. Then that was the first show that I did, was Cypress Hill. That
nice.
was a long time ago. Then we did people like Sean Paul, and then eventually people that you will know, people like Neo and DMX and these
Nice.
kind of artists. We started in Perth, and then we started doing shows around Australia, New Zealand. Um, we then, branched out, and that 6 months turned into a long time, and really gave me a completely different side to what I'd currently experienced up until that point. I became a nightclub manager.
Oh, wow.
So it was managing two of the busiest nightclubs in the city. We had a radio show, so it's like quite diverse. And I moved to Thailand to well, I started getting that it's time to settle down
Yeah.
talk from my parents. So I think I was about early 30s. And I said, you know what? I still haven't worked overseas, so let me go and do that. And of course, I had some contacts, and they asked, constantly kept in touch, but asked me to come over to Thailand to work as a director of business development for one of the Accor properties.
Ah, okay.
So I'd planned to do that just for a year and then go back home and settle down. But I was here for about 3 months and then met my now wife. But we met very quickly, and then we got engaged. Now fast forward, 9 years. We've married, two kids, three different businesses I'm trying to run.
Wow. Awesome.
Um, yeah, and Thailand's definitely home for the foreseeable future.
So how would you
So,
say that change in scene, like going to a different country, exploring different things, has enabled you to like reflect in your businesses? Like how have you incorporated that into your business, and has that taught you anything, like seeing different contexts, being in different countries? What valuable skills or things that have you learned through moving
sure.
around and taking
Yeah,
challenges?
it's a great question, and super important point. Travel, I think, is probably life's biggest luxury. All right.
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest luxury, it's the biggest wealth. You learn the most when you travel. Now, every culture, they have their own traits, right? And within different cities and countries, you have even more traits of that particular community. Um, I think being an Australian, we have a culture where, I think some of the strengths that we have are we judge people on a basis of their character.
Hmm.
All right. So if you go to a pub and you're having a beer and there's 10 people standing around, it doesn't matter how much money they have, it doesn't matter what job they have. It's more about how you hold conversation. Are you genuine? Are you charismatic?
Yeah.
Do you make people laugh? Are you good at sports? It's that kind of thing. There's people that you would forget. Like I have friends today who I've known for 20 years that I can't remember what they do for work. And that's the truth. And some of them were just here a couple of months ago, and I can't remember what their job is.
Oh,
All
wow.
right. Yeah, because you kind of raised that way. Um, that in Australia is quite common. And what it means is to get along with people, you have to ask a lot of questions. You have to have authentic conversations with people and really get to know each other. Um, so coming from a country like Australia and then coming to Thailand, that was a skill, but it was also a bit of a challenge to overcome. All right, because I find like in Thailand, people are a little bit more reserved. All right,
Yeah.
you can't ask them such open questions and drill into their life. Like they don't
Yeah.
want to talk about their personal lives and what they did on the weekend. They want to talk about what they're going to eat for lunch
Yeah.
and what they're going to eat for dinner and if they saw that movie. But going beyond that, it's not done here. And I think there's other cultures especially in Southeast Asia, where they are reserved. Your personal life is personal life, work life is work life. Um, and I guess another thing I learned was in Australia, being, I guess here it would almost come across as being arrogant. All right. But in Australia, it's being confident. All right. If you feel like you know the answer to something or you feel like you're capable of helping somebody, your people are very forthcoming with that. All right. They'll say like, "Hey, I know a guy. Oh, I did that before. I can help you with that. Yeah, I know how to do it." Those kind of things are very commonplace. Whereas
Hmm.
here in Thailand, you might have someone in a group who knows how to help you with that or knows the answer to that question, but they might be a bit reserved in terms of putting their hand up in front of a group and saying, "Yeah, I can do it. I know how to do it." Or the opposite, saying that I don't know. And I
Hmm.
think that was something that I learned in Thailand, right? I can't remember what there's a Thai word for it, but don't put people on the spot. All right. Like if you're going to have a team meeting with 10 people, don't ask a very direct question to one of your employees in front of all other 10, unless you want to be that boss that's like riding on people's backs. Um, you know, so I think I learned that the hard way, actually. I was trying to give like positive encouragement to people when they did well for hitting
Yeah.
sales targets and so on.
Yeah.
And that bit me in the ass once because they went and complained to my boss saying like,
Hmm.
it's quite embarrassing. Like when we get a close a deal, he makes us stand up in front of everyone and clap our hands or, to really announce that we've done well. Um, and look, these kind of quirks of cultures, you have to learn because you won't fit in. And I think if you don't fit in, well, it's not about fitting in. It's more about being respectful.
Hmm.
All right, you
Yeah.
need to learn about where you are, and you need to be confident about who you are and how you're going to fit in. All right. So if you are from a culture that Australians are the loudest people at any airport or any restaurant that you will see, almost. All
Yeah,
right.
for
All
sure.
right. And we don't notice it when we're around each other, but I notice it now. All right.
Yeah.
If I'm walking down Sukhumvit Road, I can spot which ones are the Australians easily,
Yeah.
easily. And now I start to see how they might come across to people who are not from there.
Hmm. Yeah.
So being mindful of these kind of things are really important. And then there's also, I mean, economic issues. I think one of the hardest things I found in Thailand was the gap between rich and poor. Well, let's not say poor, rich and middle class.
Yeah,
All
for
right,
sure.
it's quite hard to tell. Right, everyone takes really good care of themselves. They're all dressed nice. They all got nice phones and so on. Um, this is new. In Australia, you wouldn't notice that. If people couldn't afford a new iPhone, they wouldn't be getting it.
Yeah.
Whereas here, they'll sell their left leg to to make sure they got the newest phone. Um, so these kind of things, and I think one of the things is about being young is try not to get caught up in all that hype. I think youngsters, we do. Well, I did. You need to have that brand of clothes, that wallet, that car, that I used to have a sports car. So all these kind of
Yeah.
things. And you really want to get all of that. And you feel like you're getting ahead in life, but it's very short-lived and it's definitely short term. All
Yeah.
right. All those things that I wasted so much money on, I came to Thailand with one suitcase. All right. And the other stuff that I left in my house, my parent and when I extended my stay here, My parents went there and they gave everything away.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And that just shows you, you know, you're talking about things, possessions that you've built over years and years. And a lot of these things mean so much to you at the time, but knowledge and experiences are what I would concentrate on. All right. So if it's an option between, you know, buying a handbag or traveling to go see the world, go and travel. All right. Uh, if you get a job offer that you're really, really interested in, but they can't afford to pay the salary that you want, consider it. Consider it. And especially if you have the means, all right, meaning that you're not there in a position where you've got a young kid to take care of, you have to pay your rent, you've got elderly family members you have to pay for. If you're not in that position, then take it on the chin, right? Don't go for earning a top salary with all the benefits. Find the companies that you believe in, the industries that you really want to excel in, and do the hard work and do it when you're young. That gives you the biggest leg up.
For sure. So, you mentioned on like spending habits in Thailand. So, would you mind sharing like a few investing habits that you may have, or like savings, in terms of being financially literate, and how has that
Yeah.
helped you in your business?
Okay. I learned the hard way. All right. So to tell you the truth, a lot of the things I've learned in my life, I learned the hard way because I made immature, silly decisions when I was young, around your age. All right.
Yeah,
And one of the things is, you know, I think most young people, they take for granted the good advice that they're given. All right. Because a lot of people say, you know, you don't want them to make the same mistakes you did when you were a kid. And I feel like I'm about to give you one of those speeches, and you know, anyone who's listening.
yeah,
So I trust me, I know exactly how it sounds, and I definitely didn't want to hear this either. But try to learn from people's mistakes. Now, I think what I could did not, you know, the advice and the wisdom that was given to me that I didn't listen to, how I could refine that. You can't take advice and wisdom from everybody, all right? But have a couple of people that are not your direct family, all right?
yeah,
Because you need to have a couple of people like a mentor, somebody that can give you good advice, that cares about your well-being and your future, but not enough so that they're going to get emotional about it. All right. If they're going to get upset by a decision that you're going to make, you have to take that decision. Of course, you know, when your parents tell you, like, you have to take that advice and take it on board. But what I'm saying is, besides that, have a couple of other people, right, which can be, you know, leaders within your community, um, people who have achieved things that you know you think is the kind of path you want to be on. So that's good to have. Now, in terms of, you know, back to your question about financial habits, they start young. Financial habits and relationship with money starts very young, and I think this is a huge gap in our education system, that we're not taught about finances well enough. And when I'm talking about finances, I'm talking about personal finances. All
definitely.
right. So I grew up in a household where pocket money was like we got some, barely enough, you know,
Yeah,
enough. You know, if I wanted to buy basketball cards, I was looking for coins under the sofa to get, you know, get enough. But we got some extra lunch money and so on. Used to try to save that. But we didn't learn about money because we just weren't given it. All
yeah,
right. So this is my experience. So I didn't receive money freely, and I thought it was because my parents hated me, but of course they didn't, you know. But it was um I guess they also didn't probably have this discussion of how do you teach your child about money. So whenever I got any, I spent it.
oh,
And I went to a school where most of the kids around me were wealthier than I was. So I had something to prove. All right. So I started working also at a young age. I think I had my first job at 15.
oh, wow.
All right. I was working every day after school and earning money. And then, you know, on the weekend, I used to treat people. And that stuck with me for long time, of, you know, try to be the one that could afford to take care of people and spend money. And I used to spend lavishly. I remember when I got my first credit card, I fell in the trap. You know, they send you a letter and say, your credit card limit has been increased to $1,500. I was like, wow, $5,000. And I went, $5,000? I'm 20 years old. You give me $5,000 credit card? You're an idiot. Why would you give me a 20-year-old $5,000 credit card? And I booked a trip to Europe and spent it,
Wow.
and then you spend years paying that off.
Yeah.
Um, so the easiest way about savings and financial advice is to do with spending. All right. There's no point if your income is only X amount and you have these aspirations of saving these huge things. It's not going to happen, and it doesn't happen overnight. So where I would say put your energy is developing good spending habits, right? So I think there's, a slang term like, stay in your financial lane, meaning don't spend more than you have,
Yeah.
right? Now, the only time you should be spending more than you have is a solid investment opportunity, right? Now, of course, with any investment opportunities, there's always risks and rewards. And this really comes down to your upbringing. If you've been in a family where hardship has never been something that you've had to experience, your likelihood to take a bit more risk than the next person is higher, right?
Yeah.
Because you haven't seen how it feels when you haven't had money or someone close to you hasn't had enough money. So be in tune with that, right? Try to remind yourselves of, how much is a dollar worth,
Yeah.
all right? It's not how much is it worth to you. How much is it worth to the average person, all right? And remind yourself when you buy a t-shirt, all right? You buy a t-shirt in Thailand, what's like 1,500 baht, all
Yeah.
right? And then what's the minimum salary here per day is like 400.
Yeah. 400. Yeah. I think they just increased it to like 500 or something.
Yeah, all right. And you see there's a big mismatch there, all right? And the learning these kind of things and being in tune with them, it does help you to make better financial decisions. Save some money for a rainy day, definitely. So I think that a good rule there is about 20% of what you earn automatically, as soon as you get it, should go into some kind of savings, long-term investments, liquid cash. All right. So if you can, you need that for something else, you have it there. If you start doing that at age 16, you'll be ahead of most 25-year-olds.
For sure.
Way ahead, way ahead. All right. Because people don't start talking about saving money until their late 20s, early 30s, when it's, and it comes with stages in life, right? You get to the late 20s, early 30s, you start talking about marriage. Or then if you're going to get married, you're going to have to buy a house. And if you're going to get married, you're going to have to start paying for kids. There's one example I can give you. When I was in high school, there was a guy, I won't name him, but we had one friend, and he used to go and work at a market every day after school. And he was selling sorry, it was one of his auntie's markets or something. It was like a fresh produce market.
Ah, okay.
All right. So he used to go and help her sell fruits and vegetables there. And then eventually he opened up one table and he used to do trading of basketball cards.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then he opened up a shop. And by the time we finished high school, he already saved enough money for a deposit on a house.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. And this is like when everyone else was out there playing, he was saving money. And then
Wow.
he bought his first house at age 18.
Oh, wow. That's an
Yeah.
inspiration.
Yeah, it's crazy, but savings, it makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Um, now, what does my kind of investment portfolio look like today? I married a banker. All
Oh,
right, so that's also a good move.
yeah.
If if you want to make sure. But look, marriage, of course, it does play into this a little bit because it's a partnership. And you always want to find people who complement you. So I used to spend money too frivolously. Now I don't spend much money at all. I live, way within my means. I earn 10 times more than I did when I was 20, and I spend far less on myself. Right? Of
Yeah.
course, I have kids and a house and all these kind of things to spend money on, but I don't waste money like I used to when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
All right. So um, I think diversity is great. So I have some investments in cryptos. We have some stocks. have some shares in Australia, some in Thailand. Um, I don't have all the terminologies of, the financial lingo, but be mindful about, how much risk you're taking.
Yeah.
Um, it's great, we hear these stories when, somebody invested in Microsoft in the early 90s, and then 20 years later, it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. It doesn't. Most people
Yeah.
don't get that lucky.
Yeah.
Most people don't. So, when you look in the mirror and you think that that's going to happen to you, chances are it's not.
Yeah.
All right. But if you plan to do that and get into companies at a startup phase, make sure it's something that you believe in and you're not just doing it to get rich. All right.
Yeah.
If you're doing it to get rich, invest very low.
Yeah.
And if you get one of those companies that really makes it in 20 years time, you might get that return that you were aiming for, but in 20 years time, that return is not going to mean the same to you.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're 18 years old and you got $200 to invest and you invest that in a company and it becomes worth, $5,000 10 years later, $5,000 to you in 10 years is not going to mean as much as 200 did when you were 18.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Um, yeah. So always be mindful of finances. Make sacrifices when you're younger. It's much harder, right? If I needed to all of a sudden now save an extra 100,000 baht a month, it's very difficult, all right? Because I got to take that from somewhere, all right? Now I've got a family to feed. I have staff at home, staff at the office, kids' schools, all of these. When you start cutting on those, there are a lot of areas you can't cut,
Yeah.
all right? But when you're young, you can,
Yeah.
all right? So what I would be doing is whatever income you have, take out 30% of it. I go, okay, that 30% is for enjoyment. And that enjoyment covers everything. Going out, eating, drinking, clothes, all that stuff that youngsters spend 70 to 80% of their money on, keep
Yeah.
that as 30. All right. Even if you don't know what you're going to do with that other 70, don't touch it
Yeah.
until you know. And what happens is your outlook changes because that 70%, when it goes from $1,000 to $2,000 to $5,000, all of a sudden you have new opportunities that you never even imagined. All right. Because when
Yeah.
you had that first $200 saving, you couldn't invest in those things.
Yeah. For sure. So what advice would you give to, like, I mean, when you started businesses and people who want to, or aspiring entrepreneurs have ideas, want to come up with them, what advice would you give them when they're starting a business or want to start a business? And how do they make sure that they actually have something that they like, an idea that is actually feasible to work?
Okay. How to phrase this? I think life for a lot of people has gotten better globally. All
Yeah.
right. And the world has definitely gotten smaller. And we receive so much information and these opportunities are, all around us. So people spend more time on trying to be creative and come up with inspirational ideas and think that there's, so much opportunity there. There is, all right, but it's not an easy thing. All right. You can't take any concept and idea and make it into a successful business. Actually, most businesses fail.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it, right? Most businesses fail. So what I would say is, spend time to really write down just like, you have those light bulb moments where you have this, oh, this could be a great idea. Write it down.
Okay.
All right. Um, Ideas are one thing, but the other thing you should be writing down are inefficiencies, annoyances, things in life that you think are difficult and they shouldn't be that hard. All right. Because that's
Yeah.
where you're identifying pain points and business opportunities. All right. If you have two business opportunities, right? Two business ideas. One is something that's innovative and creative and has never been done before. All right. That's a much harder sell than a business opportunity that is fixing a problem.
Yeah.
All right. Now, for young dreamers, let's call us, right? People who dream big and have these big ideas, the first option is what takes our time. We're trying to
Yeah.
think of something innovative. We want to be the first to do something. All right. Um, Somebody once told me, it's not about have $1 million idea. It's not about making $1 million in one transaction. All
Hmm.
right. All right. And that's the cases that we hear about. And when you listen to young people talking about each other, like, oh, that company, they started with nothing and they sold it for $10 million. All right. Don't focus that on that $10 million that the company was sold for. It's the transaction value, right? If you can build a business that has 1 million transactions and you made $1 off each one, that's where you've built a successful business.
Okay.
And those businesses come from identifying pain points and areas where things can be improved. So things you have to keep a lookout for, um, evolving technologies. All right, I've seen some crazy stuff with this chat GPT,
Yeah,
this
for
open
sure.
AI stuff, staying ahead of the curve in terms of trends. And you will reach a point in life where you're no longer doing that. I used to be the one, right? I was the first one amongst anybody I knew who went onto Facebook, migrated from MySpace to Facebook. All right. Now I have to remind myself to check Instagram. All right. And TikTok and so on, forget about it. All right.
Yeah.
So you will reach a point in life where the trends start to pass you. So definitely while you're young, and as long as you can, stay ahead of those. I think the call's going to cut off, right? Yes, in a minute.
Yeah.
Um, Try to stay ahead of those developments in industries. Um, Back to my earlier point about having some mentors or advisors, that's really good to have, because when you have an idea, you don't just want someone who loves you very much and stands behind you and tells you that anything that comes out of your mouth is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
You need someone who can give it to you straight, right? And tell you that, look, it's a good idea. And even having a bad idea, if you think it through, it's still a good process.
Yeah.
All right. And you're teaching yourself good habits, but you need to be able to bounce that information off people. So you need to have people that you trust. All right. There's some good advisors, some friends. Surround yourself with like-minded people. This is great advice for youngsters.
Yeah.
You know, what's the saying? If you hang around with five idiots, you'll be the sixth.
Yeah. So if you could tell us a bit about your other businesses, your three businesses, and how that has shaped you and your learning about like working in
Yeah,
Thailand.
definitely. So as I was mentioning earlier, my experiences were quite varied and really from different segments altogether, with a combination of nightlife, and then hotels.
Yeah.
I had other roles that I didn't mention. I was the head of marketing for a tobacco company for Western
Wow.
Australia for a year or two. And they were all kind of vastly different. And my parents always used to say to me, what kind of career are you building? Because your jobs, there's no continuity. You're kind of over here and then you're over there and then you're over there. And I was a free spirit, or somebody who just followed my passion or what I wanted to do at the time.
Awesome.
And I think a lot of people give advice to youngsters not to do that. I think it's because it scares them, right? When they see young people bouncing around doing different things, it's scary,
Yeah.
because you have to think about the generational differences. Previous generations, they just wanted to get a job and hold on to that job so they could make enough money to take care of their family.
Yeah.
All right. And then my generation, yeah, we needed to, still need to earn a living, but maybe it's a little bit easier. And you have that kind of freedom to, I want to try this, I want to try that. So I tried many different things. And in the end, after my short time here in Thailand, I found a way to kind of combine my experiences, because I had worked in the events industry, I'd run nightclubs, I'd worked in hotels. I had a bit of a taste for tech, but not much. But I knew what the pain points here in the hospitality industry were. And that's where we decided to bring Megatix from Australia to Thailand.
Okay.
In Australia, Megatix was a pure ticketing platform, concerts, nightclubs, music festivals, and so on. Um, it was built by my childhood friend, who is now my co-founder. My other partner was the friend of mine who We were running the events company together
Oh,
and running
wow.
nightclubs together. So the three of us have known each other over 20 years. And we kind of, came back together for this project. And it was about the pain points. When I moved to Thailand, if you wanted to go and attend a New Year's Eve party at a riverside hotel, they would ask you to photocopy your credit card or, fill in this form. And I'm talking about 2014. It
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago,
Yeah.
right? Where, and they're still asking you to prepay and fill out forms, or even worse, right? They would ask you to come to the hotel and pay at the festive desk.
Oh my
So they
God.
even they put a desk in the lobby and made people sit there all day just to take payments for bookings.
Oh my God.
And each year, we used to ask the finance teams, can you come up with a solution? Do we have to do this can't we do this online? And we always, no, there was no progress. The other thing was about selling vouchers. So you're familiar with the Thai Teo Thai
Yeah.
at Queen Circuit
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Discovery Thailand?
For sure.
People would go there, 20, 30,000, 40,000 people a day, and queue up to buy vouchers at a booth for a hotel that they're going to go and stay at sometime later.
Oh.
And I was quite shocked by it because when I first started in hotel industry is when online bookings first started. So there was a few of these things, and I could have kind of thought of them as low-hanging fruit. So we launched Megatix as a ticketing platform. I tried to close up as many hotels as I could, get them onto our platform. Hotels were great with a lot of content, and they had pain points. Of course, that worked. We were just newly launched in 2019, and then of course COVID came along, less than a year after we launched our company. But we were quite blessed in the fact that we had the only system in Thailand at the time that was selling hotel vouchers online. Now everybody's doing it, but at that time we were the only one in the market, and
Wow.
the market leader by far. So it was about having the right technology at the right time. It wasn't something that a misconception is that we pivoted during COVID to do this. We were doing it before COVID.
Ah.
It wasn't a COVID related decision. The only thing that was kind of COVID related, we tried to do food delivery, which we
Oh,
we had to pull out of because it was way too difficult. But the hotel vouchers was already there, and Megatix did extremely well through COVID. I think a lot of it came down to optimism on my part. I convinced a lot of serious senior people that COVID was not going to be around for that long. So why don't we sell vouchers today? And you can still keep paying your staff, and in a month's time, when COVID's gone, the guests will come in, and business will return to usual. And I think I convinced a lot of people of my optimism, and we sold a lot of vouchers, a hell of a lot of vouchers during that time. It's also something that was quite perfect for Thailand, right? Thai people love buying these vouchers and
yeah.
amazing deals. And the kind of benefit was three ways, right? Hotels got cash flow because we paid
Yeah.
them for every voucher sold, not every voucher used,
Cool.
which is a big difference between platforms in the past. Great for this customer because he got these
Yeah.
awesome deals.
Yeah.
So, and of course, it was good for our business. So that's Megatix. Where we are today, we're the fastest growing ticketing platform in Thailand.
Wow.
We have the best technology by far, and we're coming kind of more back to our core business. So we do music festivals, concerts, nightclubs, pool parties, comedy events, anything where you need pure ticketing. We still do hotel vouchers, but we've definitely scaled that back to about 100 clients. Whereas at the peak of COVID, we had over 500 hotels.
Wow.
We're now just choosing which ones have good products that we feel we can help to sell. And then besides Megatix, I've got two new ventures. One is I'm distributing an alcohol brand called Jut Life, which
Uh-huh.
is made by some Punjabi guys back in my
Oh, wow.
hometown in England. So I got into the alcohol business. I think, given my background and given what I've achieved with Megatix, I've got a good network in the industry here. So when you want to start your second business, try to find something that complements the network that you've already developed, and the expertise that you have. All right. So I think at the beginning of the call, I said, start at the bottom. All right.
Yeah.
I've worked in a bar. All right. I've worked in a bar. I've worked as a glassy in a nightclub.
Yeah.
Right? So I understand the liquor industry at least to that level. And then the third one I'm doing is events.
Oh,
So the events that I'm trying to do, the first one is next week. It's the Punjabi MC.
Oh yeah, I heard
Um,
about that one.
yeah, so Punjabi MC is also from just around the corner from my hometown.
Wow.
And you're doing these events to help promote the vodka brand.
Oh, okay.
And I plan to do a lot more. It's something that I'm passionate about. You know, I've toured with the huge hip hop stars, but it's about getting back to my roots. Something that you know, I can develop. I think there's such a huge, vibrant Indian community here in Thailand, but then when we look at the kind of events that we have, there's just like not that much going on.
For sure.
And it's not equally well represented. I'll give you an idea, right? We have Russian clients on Megatix. They have A-list celebrities performing in Phuket, Bangkok,
Wow.
in Bali once a month,
Wow.
and that's just for Russian tourists mostly. And then how many Indian people are we in Bangkok alone? Like I have heard like 200,000.
Yeah, probably something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and you think we don't have Indian artists that could be touring here, and you know, so I'm trying to fill that gap, you know, and do something new.
for sure. That's really great that you're tapping back to your roots and bringing that, because I mean, like, you've been all over the world, seen a lot, and finally you come back to this, which is really
Yeah,
nice. So,
thank
is
you.
there any other advice you would like to give to the general youth about their finances, about business, about life, even?
There, you know, there's so many beautiful ways to say this. I've read so many sayings, but I can't remember. But the gist of it is, you know, people are going to make mistakes. Life does get hard, and things you might work on for a year or 2 years, then you know you might fall flat on your face. All right, but learn from it. And everything that it might feel like, you know, it's the hardest and you'll never get past it, and you might have humiliated yourself. It could be, you know, someone you loved, you know, hurt you. It could be business. It could be a dream job that you wanted that you didn't get. Everyone goes through these things. Although it will feel like, you know, the whole universe has singled you out just to turn everything against you at that time, it's not the case. And use it as a learning opportunity. All right. Every time life is difficult, it's an opportunity to learn. Surround yourself with the right people. All right. I'm not saying don't party, don't drink. I'm not saying any of that. Do it, but you know, have that balance. All right, because the sooner you can find that balance, the better it's going to be in your life when you get older. As a 40-year-old, I lived a great you know, party lifestyle when I was younger. Regret that I have, none of those things. You know, I had a lot of failures. The regrets that I have is probably I didn't start a family early enough, or I wasn't as serious enough about business. You know, I sort of got serious after I got married,
Hmm.
because then it was definitely time to grow up.
Yeah,
All right. So make sure you have fun, but have some goals. All right. And have goals, and then lay out some action plans. They don't have to be in concrete. The best laid plans never end well. All right.
yeah,
So you've got to have plans that are, especially in this day and age, they've got to be dynamic. And at some point, you might have been working on something for 2 years and go, you know what? That was a waste of time. Don't be, don't regret that 2 years. Pull the pin instead of making it three.
yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it'll always come back to having a few people that you can reach out to get good quality advice. Um, no, none of the best really go at it alone. They always have someone there that they can refer to get that advice.
Sure. Thank you so
And
much. Yeah, for that
yeah,
valuable feedback, everything that, like, I mean, I've definitely learned a lot today. Yeah, I mean, I think viewers who are gonna watch this are gonna love it. Learning about your experiences, learning about how they can strategize their spending, and so many different things that we've learned. I personally learned about Megatix. I really think it's a really cool idea, and I would love to see more Indian events in Bangkok. It'd be really nice.
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being on the episode today.
My pleasure. Best of luck and really good to meet you.
Thank you.